Welcome to the Always About People show. I am your host today, Beamer Barnes, reporting live from New York City. So thank you for those of you that have been tuning in for our change management series, whether it's been on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We appreciate you so much. As you know, from the first time that we had the opportunity to connect, it was on organizational systems and how change management really impacts the entire organization. And so if we're looking at it from a organizational system standpoint, organizations are made up of 4 different systems that just coexist together at all times. We have our cultural, our strategic, our technical, and our political. Technically, that's where our individual contributors live. Politically, that's where our managers, note, managers, not necessarily leaders, managers live within the political system because they are responsible for the progression of individual contributors within the org. And they are typically really good at building relationships and being able to network within an organization. Last week, we talked about the mindset that we can practice during change, because change is difficult, it's costly, and it's weird, but it's also normal, rewarding, and completely doable. So today we're going to talk about the accountability during change within an organization and how often it can be really frustrating for us during moments of change because we don't always know what our responsibility is, whether we're an individual contributor, a manager leading through it. We just know we got to make a change. It needs to happen now. And here's where it goes. Something to consider is that organizational change, like personal change, is not always linear, which goes against the construct that we as Westerners like to experience. We like to know that it's going to go from here to here to here, and we have the best plan on how it is that we're going to lead through change and what all needs to happen for the organization. But simply, it's not linear. There's going to be some VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, and ambiguity and complexity that is going to happen within this process that is going to make things a little bit difficult. But a way that we can make change a little bit more manageable is by creating systems of accountability during the change. So because we all like examples, let's go ahead and break one down. I have a friend, she works within the property management industry. And here recently, with inflation and everything that's currently going on, she was working on a team of 8 people, and they served about 4 different properties in a major metropolitan area. Now, during all of this change, they had to make the decision as a company to go ahead and cut that team from 8 people to 4 people. She is still on the team, but in the midst of all of this, which all of us, I'm sure, have a friend or we ourselves have experienced it, where they bring everybody into the room and they say, Jack and Jill, Bob and Sally are no longer working here. We had to make some tough decisions, and here's where we're going to go. And we just really need everybody to step up to the plate. It's going to be a little chaotic, but, I know that we can do it, and we're going to get through this. And that was it. That was the conversation. No strategy on how we're going to fill these roles, because these 4 roles were doing stuff. It's not that they were empty players in the game. It's that they had to trim some fat, so to speak, in order to get through this turbulent season. As you know, within most organizations, what we can do in times of change is just say, this is what we're doing. And it's just passed off onto this technical individual contributor system. But if we can really focus on the strategy of where it is that we're going and what we're doing and thinking through, if this is the change that we're making because we have to, how is that going to impact a variety of different teams? How can we influence change throughout the org instead of it just being tossed on them for them to kind of figure it out and what that means or what that looks like? And so for this friend, very proud of her, she went in and had a one-on-one with her manager after about 2 weeks of working over 80 hours. And she was like, I am burned out. I don't want to leave this job. I love this job. But if things continue to progress the way that they are, I'm not sure that I have the stamina to really keep up with the demand of what's being expected of me right now. Is there a way that we can really think through who does what? Because a lot of us are just stumbling over, there's double work because we don't actually know what exactly it is that we're doing. We just know that we need to cover these other responsibilities for everything that's happened. And in talking through it with the manager is like, this makes a lot of sense. Hadn't thought through that, how it was going to impact you, how it's impacting these other 3 team members. Let's go ahead and do XYZ. They come up with the plan. It's been about 2 months now and everything is going swimmingly. It's fine. They've worked it out because they were able to build a strategy surrounding this part of the change. I think it's important to consider that whenever we look at leadership, as a leader, the purpose of a leader is to develop people. So how do we do that? We inspire change, we focus individually, and we influence people to move towards something bigger than ourselves. So in this example, it's looking at the individual person and saying, this is their lived experience. How can I inspire change within this situation? And how can I help them shift the mindset from this is really difficult to that this is a really rewarding experience? It doesn't mean you have to work more. It doesn't mean that you have to, stumble over teammates, but how can we build collaboration to really focus on the issue at hand instead of the overarching issue was that we had to trim some fat and get rid of some people because of where the organization is. Does this make sense? I think it's important to consider that accountability really is taking responsibility for the outcomes of our actions and decisions and successfully transforming our effort into some form of result. There's a well-known statistic from McKinsey that says that 70% of organizational change efforts fail, and that the primary reason for that level of failure, the lack of management support and employee buy-in. An observation of that lack of support and buy-in are a consequence of people staying in this mindset that it's difficult, costly, and weird, and not being helped to see change in a more neutral or even positive way. And so with that, if we're looking at the lack of management support and the lack of employee buy-in as being the reason why our organization is having a hard time changing, a way that we can influence that is by building in these systems of accountability. So what are some easy things that we can do? Think through the impact, involve other people, and it's okay to not have all the answers. If you are an individual contributor, I am almost certain that you are someone that likes to be very good at your job and you were able to deliver value on a daily basis. And so hearing it's okay to not have all the answers is probably incredibly challenging. And that's okay. It's okay to not have the answers, but it is important to ask the questions. As a leader, you do not need to have all of the answers for how this is going to go, but we can engage in the conversation to help draw some kind of conclusion and to get somewhere with it instead of just sit down, do the job, don't think about it, grin and bear it. Because what that ends up doing is that the employee buy-in is so low because people don't know how their influence is going to draw into this bigger change that might be happening. Google did a study a few years ago that they ended up posting on Forbes, but it was talking about what makes a successful team. There were 5 things: psychological safety, dependability, role clarity, meaning, and impact. How does this foster into change? And what does this mean for building in systems of accountability? Because whenever we consider psychological safety, I can show up to work, be my 100% self, my authentic self, and I don't have to question, am I safe here? Are my ideas safe? Am I okay to bring me into this environment? Dependability. I know that whenever I'm out, how that impacts the rest of my team. And whenever somebody else is out on my team, how that's going to impact them. I have role clarity and understanding what it is that I'm responsible for and what my job is. Impact. I recognize that I'm making an impact outside of myself, that it's not about me. It's about the organization as a whole and what it is that we all get to contribute to. And then meaning. Personal meaning in my work. I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm passionate about what I'm doing and how awesome that is. So bringing this all back to this place of accountability. As leaders, as managers, it's one thing to know, or for your people to know that you care. They can know that you care. But if you cannot clarify what it is that their role is and explain to somebody else what it is, your care isn't going to go in the direction that you want it to go. Why is that? Let's break this down as an example. We can know that someone can know, we'll say Sally can know that her boss cares about her. But whenever his response is, she's an integral part of the organization, I don't know what we would do without her. What that does is it reinforces her ability as an individual contributor, but he's not able to say what it is that she specifically does. So Sally helps us with our payroll. She gets everything done on time so that everyone is able to get their checks and XYZ. We wouldn't be able to get our employees paid if it wasn't for her individual contribution to our organization. That's different than just saying like she's an integral part of the org, but he himself can't validate what her role actually is in the organization. Do they care if you can't clarify as my boss what it is that I do? There's a level of accountability that we are asking for individual contributors, but individual contributors are also asking for their managers and for their leaders. Recognize the value that I bring and what it is that I do. So whenever we're facing environments of change and contributing to these places of change, we're able to say, this is what this person does. So since I understand what they do and what they contribute to the greater vision of the organization, when I'm engaging in this change, or I'm aware of these like things that are coming down the assembly line, I know how it's going to impact them. And that's how we can build our strategy and create a culture of accountability. Because once again, what is accountability? It's taking responsibility for the outcomes of their actions and decisions by successfully transforming effort into result. So a way to do that is to understand, to think through the impact, to involve the appropriate people, and to not have all the answers. Thank you so much for tuning in today for our change management series, our third installment. Next week, for our fourth installment, 4 out of 5, we are going to be talking about learning during change. I know it's not always easy and there's so much to learn, but how can we use innovation as a way to influence our culture? We've talked about the accountability in our strategic system. What about our cultural system? Well, let's use learning and innovation in order to do that. So we'll be talking about that next week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you then.